I forgot to tell my son that the camera was working again. When I checked it, I froze. I still replay that moment in my head, over and over, trying to pinpoint exactly where I went wrong. Was it my fault for not double-checking, for trusting too much, or was I simply naive to the true nature of the people I had brought into my home, into my life? I had just finished my usual evening routine, the house quiet, the kids supposedly asleep. My son, Leo, had been acting a little off lately, distant, spending more time than usual cooped up in his room. I put it down to typical teenage angst, maybe some drama with his friends, but a mother's intuition is a powerful thing, and mine had been whispering warnings for weeks. So, when I settled down with my cup of tea and decided to glance at the nanny cam feed from his room, a relic from when he was much younger, still active but rarely checked, I wasn't expecting to see anything more than a sleeping child. But what I saw, what unfolded before my eyes, it ripped away every illusion I had about my family, my marriage, and the supposed safety of my own home. My son was not asleep, and he was not alone. Was I wrong for invading his privacy, even with a nanny cam? Or was what I discovered a necessary evil, a horrifying truth that I needed to unearth, no matter the cost? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when our family felt normal, or at least what I believed was normal. I'm Sarah, a working mom in my late 30s, married to Mark, a seemingly devoted husband and father. We had 2 children, Leo, who was 15, and Lily, my sweet 10-year-old daughter. Our life from the outside probably looked idyllic. A nice house in the suburbs, 2 healthy kids, stable jobs. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, subtle at first, then widening into gaping chasms. It started, I think, about a year ago. Mark had always been a bit of a workaholic, driven, ambitious. But his hours started stretching. Weekends became less about family time and more about catching up at the office. He'd come home late, smelling faintly of a generic cologne that wasn't his usual, and he'd be tired, irritable. I tried to talk to him, to ask if everything was okay, if there was stress at work I could help with. He'd just brush me off, tell me I was overthinking, that he was just trying to provide for us. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Then there was Leo, my sensitive, artistic Leo. He'd always been a happy child, full of laughter and a vibrant imagination. But around the same time Mark's behavior shifted, Leo started to change too. He became withdrawn, quiet, spending hours locked in his room, not drawing or reading like he used to, but just existing. He'd snap at Lily for minor things, something he never did, and he avoided eye contact with me. When I asked him if something was bothering him, he'd just shrug, mumble something about homework, and retreat further into himself. I worried, of course, but I tried to give him space, believing it was just a phase, the natural awkwardness of adolescence. The nanny cam in Leo's room was an old fixture. We'd installed it when he was a toddler, a way to keep an eye on him while he slept. We never took it down, it just became part of the furniture, rarely used after he hit school age. It would occasionally glitch, the feed going black for a few days before mysteriously reconnecting. A few weeks before that night, it had been on one of its silent strikes. I hadn't really thought about it until Mark mentioned he'd tinkered with some of the smart home wiring, hoping to fix a flickering light in the kitchen, and casually added that he might have accidentally sorted out the nanny cam too. I'd meant to tell Leo, meant to remind him it was active again, but honestly, it just slipped my mind. It felt so irrelevant at the time, a tiny detail in the whirlwind of our increasingly strained family life. The night I checked the camera, I was feeling particularly low. Mark had been out again, at a conference. He'd said, but his texts were sparse, his voice mailbox full. I felt that familiar knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Lily was fast asleep, her room quiet and peaceful. I made myself a chamomile tea, hoping to soothe my frayed nerves, and slumped onto the couch. That's when I remembered Mark's comment about the camera. A sudden, inexplicable urge to check it washed over me. Not because I suspected Leo of anything nefarious, but because I just wanted to see my son, to reassure myself that he was okay, sleeping soundly, safe in his bed. Maybe seeing him would calm my own restless mind. I opened the app on my phone, the small red light indicating it was connected. The screen flickered, then settled, showing the familiar view of Leo's room. His desk, cluttered with art supplies, his guitar leaning against the wall, the messy pile of clothes in the corner. And then the bed, my breath caught in my throat. He wasn't sleeping. He was sitting up, his back to the camera, but the angle was clear enough. And he wasn't alone. Another figure was with him, partially obscured, but I could make out dark hair, a slender arm. My mind immediately jumped to conclusions. Had he snuck a friend over, a girlfriend? My heart hammered against my ribs, a mixture of annoyance and a strange sense of dread. But then the figure moved, turning slightly, and the features became clearer. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a friend. It wasn't a girlfriend. It was Mark, my husband. He was sitting next to Leo, too close, his arm around my son's shoulder, a gesture that usually would have seemed paternal, loving. But there was something in the way he was leaning in, the hushed intensity of their conversation, the way Leo was hunched over, almost recoiling from his touch, that screamed wrongness. My mind reeled. What was happening? Why was Mark in Leo's room so late? Why were they whispering like this? I zoomed in slightly, my hand trembling so much I almost dropped the phone. Mark was talking, his face serious, his eyes darting around the room, almost as if he was checking for something, checking if anyone was watching. Leo's face, when he finally turned towards his father, was a mask of pure anguish. His eyes were red, rimmed, his cheeks stained with tears. He looked terrified, absolutely terrified. My heart shattered into a million pieces. My son, my poor, sweet son. What was Mark doing to him? What had he said? The image was silent, a horrifying tableau playing out without sound, forcing me to fill in the blanks with the worst possible scenarios my imagination could conjure. I watched, frozen, as Mark reached out, not to comfort Leo, but to cup his chin, forcing Leo to look at him. My son flinched, pulling away, but Mark's grip seemed to tighten. And then he leaned in closer, his lips moving against Leo's ear, a secret whisper shared in the dead of night, a secret that was clearly tearing my son apart. I couldn't breathe, my vision blurred. This wasn't just a late night chat. This was something sinister, something profoundly disturbing. The way Mark was looking at Leo, the way Leo was reacting, it was all wrong. Every instinct in my body screamed danger. I needed to know. I needed to understand. But how? How do you confront something like this without destroying everything? So that's the situation I was in, witnessing this horrifying scene unfold on my phone screen. My son looking utterly broken, my husband well. I didn't even know what to call him anymore. I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stormed into the room? Would you have gathered more evidence? Would you have confronted Mark directly, or Leo first? What would your next move have been in that moment of absolute terror and confusion? My first instinct, a primal, maternal urge, was to burst into that room, to rip my son away from whatever evil Mark was inflicting upon him. But a cooler, more analytical part of my brain, a part I didn't even know existed in such a crisis, held me back. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood? What if my sudden appearance just made things worse, making Mark more guarded, more dangerous? I needed proof, undeniable evidence, before I acted. I kept watching. Mark finally released Leo, giving his shoulder a firm, almost threatening squeeze. He stood up, cast one last glance at my son's slumped figure, and then quietly exited the room. I waited, heart pounding, until I heard the faint click of his bedroom door. Then I rushed to Leo's room. I didn't knock. I just opened the door, my hand shaking so violently I almost couldn't turn the knob. Leo was still sitting on the bed, his head buried in his hands, soft, broken sobs escaping his lips. The sight of him, so vulnerable, so utterly heartbroken, fueled a rage within me I didn't know I possessed. "Leo," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He startled, lifting his head, his eyes wide with fear, then quickly replaced by a look of profound shame and despair when he saw me. "Mom," he choked out, wiping frantically at his tear-streaked face. I sat beside him, pulling him into my arms, holding him tight. He was stiff at first, but then he melted into my embrace, sobbing openly, clutching at my nightgown as if he was drowning. "What happened, baby?" I murmured, stroking his hair, trying to keep my voice steady, calm. "What did your father say to you?" He pulled back slightly, his eyes pleading, terrified. "Mom, please don't tell him I told you." That confirmed it. My suspicions, however vague and horrifying, were solidified. Mark was doing something to him. "Tell me everything, sweetie," I urged, my voice firm now, resolute. "No matter what it is, I promise, I will protect you. I will not let anyone hurt you, especially not your father." And then, slowly, haltingly, the words tumbled out of him, each one a dagger to my heart. He spoke of Mark's special talks. How they started subtly, just compliments about his artistic talent, his sensitivity. Then they escalated, Mark telling Leo that he was different, more understanding than me, that I didn't get him, like his father did. He manipulated Leo, turning him against me, telling him secrets about our marriage, things that were untrue, painting me as the villain. Then came the physical touches, disguised as fatherly affection, but they lingered too long, in places that made Leo uncomfortable, made him feel dirty. He'd tried to tell Mark to stop, but Mark would get angry, threatened to take away his art supplies, his phone, to tell me that Leo was disrespectful and ungrateful. The late night visits, the hushed conversations, the emotional manipulation, the unwanted touches, it was a slow, insidious poisoning of my son's spirit. The most recent incident, the one I'd just witnessed, was Mark telling Leo that if he ever told me or anyone else, he'd make sure Leo lost everything he cared about, that I wouldn't believe him, that I'd be angry. He told Leo that no one would ever understand their special bond. I listened, my blood turning to ice, my hands clenching into fists. The rage that had been simmering within me now exploded into a roaring inferno. My husband, the man I loved, the father of my children, was a monster. He had been systematically grooming and emotionally abusing our son. I spent the rest of the night comforting Leo, reassuring him, telling him again and again that none of this was his fault, that he was brave for telling me, that I believed him. I called my sister, a lawyer, around 3 a.m., my voice trembling as I recounted everything, omitting nothing. She was horrified, furious. She advised me to get Leo to a therapist immediately, to contact Child Protective Services, and to gather as much evidence as possible. The nanny cam, she said, was crucial. The next morning I confronted Mark. He woke up, oblivious, trying to act normal, asking me if I'd slept well. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw a stranger, a predator hiding behind a familiar face. I didn't shout, I didn't scream. My voice was eerily calm, controlled, a deadly weapon. I know, I said, my eyes boring into his. I know everything you've done to Leo. His face drained of color. He stammered, tried to deny it, tried to spin a tale of teenage overreaction, of me being an overprotective mother. But I cut him off, listing the specific instances Leo had recounted, detailing the late night visits, the threats. And then I delivered the final blow. I forgot to tell Leo the nanny cam was working again. I said, a cruel smile playing on my lips, I saw you. I saw what you did to our son. The air left his lungs in a rush. His eyes darted around, panicked, trapped. All the bravado, all the manipulative charm, vanished, replaced by pure terror. He knew he was caught. He begged, he pleaded, he tried to manipulate me, to tell me it was a misunderstanding, that he loved Leo, that he loved me. He even tried to turn it around, accusing me of invading our son's privacy, of being obsessive. But I was beyond his lies, beyond his gaslighting. The images of Leo's broken face, the sound of his suppressed sobs, were seared into my mind. I told him to pack a bag, that he was leaving, that he was never to set foot in my house again. He resisted, tried to argue. That's when my sister, who had quietly arrived and was waiting in the kitchen, walked in, a grim expression on her face, her phone already dialing. "Mark," she said, her voice like steel. "Child Protective Services has already been contacted. The police are next. If you don't leave peacefully, you will be escorted out in handcuffs, and I promise you, I will make sure you never see your children again." He looked at her, then at me, at the unyielding resolve in my eyes. He finally understood the gravity of his situation. He packed a small bag in stunned silence, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As he walked past Leo's room, I heard him mumble something, a last desperate attempt at defiance or justification, but I didn't care. He was gone. The aftermath was a hurricane. Therapists for Leo and Lily, countless interviews with social workers and police. It was painful, exhausting, but through it all, Leo became stronger, healthier. He started drawing again, his art reflecting his healing journey. Lily, bless her innocent heart, was confused but resilient. I told her Mark had to leave because he'd made some very bad choices that hurt our family. She didn't press for details, just accepted it, relieved that the tension in the house had dissipated. The divorce was messy, protracted, but with the evidence from the nanny cam and Leo's brave testimony, Mark was stripped of all parental rights. He was convicted of emotional and psychological abuse, and for the unwanted touching, which thankfully had not escalated further. He received a substantial prison sentence. It wasn't enough, not for what he did, but it was justice. Our lives are quieter now, and slowly, painstakingly, we are rebuilding. Leo is thriving in therapy, finding his voice again, his laughter returning. Lily is blooming, her natural joy unburdened by the dark cloud Mark had cast over our home. As for me, the pain of betrayal runs deep, but the strength I found in protecting my children, in standing up to a monster, has transformed me. I am no longer naive. I am no longer afraid. This story is a stark reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, even within the closest bonds. It's a testament to the power of a mother's intuition and the immense courage of a child who finally found the strength to speak his truth. So, like this video, if you were on my side, if you agree that sometimes invading privacy is a necessary evil to uncover a greater truth, subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes The most shocking tales are the ones unfolding silently behind closed doors. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story. SE Polish language, ma convert, KR